What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie that I was actually really looking forward to watching after seeing the initial trailer. From the looks of it, this movie was going to be a different take on the zombie genre, which I'm always interested to see when directors take a concept that's been around for forever and try to do like a new or unique spin on it. And this seemed to be a much more quiet and refined, like indie movie that just has the incorporation of zombies in it, but is trying to be more meditative and trying to say something larger. And this movie also stars Renate Reinsve, who is in the film The Worst Person in the World, which is one of my favorite films of the decade so far. So I was really excited to see her give another performance. Really looking forward to checking this movie out. And the film I'm going to be telling you about today is Handling the Undead. Handling the Undead is directed by Thea Hvistendahl. On a hot summer day in Oslo, the dead mysteriously awaken and three families are thrown into chaos. When their deceased loved ones come back to them, who are they and what do they want? So, as I said, I was very excited to watch this movie, really looking forward to it, and it was okay. I was a little bit let down by this movie. I think that it has a really incredible premise, and I think that it has some really fantastic moments in it that are really emotional, but the pacing and the start of the film is really off. I feel like they didn't really know how to get it to where it needed to go, which makes it tonally uneven. And it makes it just feel like it stumbles to get to the finish line a little bit. And I'll talk about that when I break the movie down as a whole. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Anna, played by Renate Reinsve. And we learn early on in the movie, she has recently lost her young son. I'm guessing he's between the ages of like 7 to 9. They don't really ever explicitly say. And she lives at home with, I believe, her father. And they have kind of a distant relationship. She works at this restaurant. And so we're introduced to her. Then we're introduced to a woman who has lost her partner recently. And we see her at the funeral home and she's looking at her partner and is like clearly crushed to go back to an empty house together. And then we are introduced to another family where there's a husband and wife and they have a daughter and a son and they are living their day-to-day lives together. Well, one of the family members in that family tragically dies, and so we have three dead family members here. And one night in this hot summer evening, there's a thunderstorm. We see all these things happen, and the dead magically start to rise up. The grandfather goes to the grave site of the young boy, and he thinks he hears something in the coffin buried underground, so he digs him up, and to his surprise, his grandson is still alive. The family member who has passed away wakes up in the hospital after being declared dead, and the woman whose partner has passed away has gotten up from the funeral home before she was put in the casket and walked back to the house. And so the entirety of the film is these characters realizing their loved ones are alive, sort of. They're definitely not the same. They can't speak. Their eyes are all glazed over, but they're trying to live their lives as if they were alive. And they're trying to see, can they be a part of my life, or do I eventually have to move on? And that's what the film is exploring through its runtime. So as I said, I thought this movie was okay. Honestly, I thought that this would speak volumes emotionally, and I thought that it would get really intense. But outside of a couple of moments, I didn't really feel a whole lot for this movie. And I think because of the fact that the director chose to focus on three separate stories instead of just one, it made it really difficult for you to hone in as an audience member and care all that much, especially with how brief of a runtime this movie is. This thing is like an hour and 30 minutes long, hour and 35. And I just feel like if you're going to explore three separate plot lines, you need a lot more time to do it. You can't just like rush through. And that's exactly what happens here. I do think, like I said, the performances in this are all pretty good. That even Renate Reinsve, who I really like, she's fine in this movie. Didn't really have any like super incredible moments outside of one when she first sees that her son is back in her house and alive again, that I thought was truly just a remarkable acting performance. But she was fine through the rest of the movie. I just think this movie is trying so hard to use a horror concept that has existed for a while to try to speak volumes on like loss and letting go, and how difficult it can be to let go sometimes, and how hard families would fight to try to have their dead family members back in their lives, even though we all know that's an impossibility. It's just not realistic. And I think there's ways to explore it. I kept thinking, because of movies that are meditations on grief, I always go back to David Lowery's A Ghost Story, because I just think that it is a brilliant meditation on grief. And that's an hour and a half long movie that has virtually no dialogue. But every single sequence, the visuals speak volumes to the emotional pain and the struggles of the characters. And in this movie, I just didn't see that was the case. They spend the first almost half hour of this hour and a half long movie getting to the point where the dead are being brought back to life. And I just feel like so much of that time was wasted. You could have honestly like shown even briefer segments with these characters to kind of jump into it, so that we could have heavier moments of resonance with these really intense emotional sequences that the director tries to throw in like the last 15 minutes, that just don't sit with you as long because there's so much wasted time early on. I feel like it's shot pretty well for the most part. There are a couple of sequences that are a little bit too dark for my taste, that I feel like they should have paid a little bit more attention to detail. I realize the movie is supposed to be gloomy, it's supposed to feel really heavy, but some of it was just almost like too dark, like it wasn't color graded correctly, or the cinematographer didn't look over it in the right way, to where it made it difficult to see what was going on in each and every scene. Some of the stories were stronger than others. I feel like the family that lost the family member was the weakest story, which is kind of surprising, because I felt like that would end up being the strongest one. I feel like the strongest one for me was the woman who lost her partner. I felt like that was one of the most impactful sequences in the film, and like just really kind of a hard pill to swallow. And I think that they really did a great job focusing on that. But even in Renate Reinsve's story with her son, there were moments that worked really well, but I had a feeling that it was going to go the direction that it did in the third act, which honestly made it relatively unsatisfying. And I don't know, I just, like I said, I think about movies like A Ghost Story, or movies that focus really heavily on this meditation of loss and grief, that have just done it so much better. And this movie was just relatively unsatisfying. I just kept thinking about how they could tweak certain things or make the movie a little bit more engaging. And unfortunately, I finished this and I was like, I probably would never watch this again. I mean, the director had a really interesting idea, and I think that she has the capability to make something really special, and I would definitely watch something else that she creates. I think there's enough here where she has interesting ideas. I just hope that, like, especially with a lot of the middling to lower reviews that this movie has gotten, that she would go into her next project rethinking certain things or structuring it to make the narrative more effective overall. So have you seen Handling the Undead? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Honestly, it's relatively forgettable. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.